Hey everybody, Alex from SCADA here. In this video, we're going to go through a high-level overview of the Ignition platform to help you understand the basic concepts and some of the features and functionalities you will generally see when you're first getting into Ignition development. And then we'll go into a little more detail in Ignition 101 about some of these topics, and then how to actually build some things in Ignition 102 for vision, 103 for perspective, 104 for the Launchpad projects, and then we'll go through the Ignition Design Challenge and the Gold certification in 201 and 301 and 302, and then we will go through some more advanced functionality in the higher level courses that you can access if you would like. So first, we're diving into the Ignition demo project. This is using the perspective module, which is the more modern way to build screens. It was released in, I think, 2019 and has had quite a bit of development since then. And vision still exists and is fully supported, and many companies are running their factories on that currently. But any new projects are typically done in perspective just because it's getting more development resources from Inductive Automation. So you can go to this demo at demo.inductiveautomation.com. It gives you a handful of projects you can look at to see how Ignition is used in a variety of industries, and some other options outside of running a plant floor, like a computerized maintenance management system, or CMMS, that lets you track process data. So maybe how long a pump has been running and generate maintenance work orders based on that, or allow operators to create maintenance work orders in Ignition. We can also let operators log in using RFID badges, or use RFID or NFC sensors to track the movement of equipment through the plant floor. And then different industries like data centers, oil and gas, water treatment, building management, automotive, and prepared foods processing line. So I'd recommend taking a look at this and getting familiar with different things Ignition can do. So the main piece of Ignition that most operators and things will interact with are your screens. So in this case, we're in perspective, so we're in a web browser. You can also load these on mobile devices and get a scaled down version of this. So this entire thing is our overview screen. We also have a floor plan screen we can navigate to using the menu up here. A single line diagram. This is a diagram of how everything is set up electrically for the data center, with various circuit breakers, and UPS stands for uninterruptible power supply, so battery backups, and how everything is connected there. We can pull up a heat map to view temperatures across the various data center sections. Then we'll talk about alarms in a little bit, trends, and then for the demo system, this shows you the architecture that this system is using on the Ignition side, and various scenarios. This would be a data center specific use case that kind of gives you some go-bys and what you might expect to see for various actions in a data center. So these are all screens in perspective, and they give us access to display data. In this case, we're using like a moving analog indicator component on each of these 9 boxes, some spark lines. Then we have drop downs and things that we can use, gauges, indicators and buttons, and text fields, and all sorts of things. And then within screens, like each of these 9 boxes on the left is probably a template, so that we can build this graphic once and we can pass different data or tags into that. So we build this graphic, then we can pass in power usage effectiveness data, IT load data, cold aisle average temp data. So we only have to build this once, and we can make it dynamic across the project. And this is also what's known as a dashboard view In a factory, you might see something like this on a TV display next to the production line that will give you production line information or information for the entire facility. We also will get into more process design type screens here in a second, but dashboards are a very common use case in the Ignition world. And you could also build dashboard screens an operator can use to run the plant, maybe by giving them they can click into this and set a set point or something if they want to set a particular cooling set point to control the HVAC or heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system in the data center to control the temperature. And these are what I'll call a base level screen. So this basically would fill up your browser or your mobile device. And if we go to the floor plan screen, we can also, if we click on one of these sections, we can see pop-up screens. So we can pull that up and move that around. This will be similar to any pop-up you would see in a web-based application. And this will give us a more detailed view of what we're clicking on. So we clicked on, Site 1, Data Hall 1, Section 1, Power Distribution Unit 8A. This tells us any active alarms, information about our inlet power, our OCP system, any other sensors, configurations, and things that we have there. If we were to click Section 2, just pick this one, we'll see Section 2 PDU 4A's data, and there's currently no active alarms for that, which we would see up here on the top if there were. So we also have pop-up views in perspective, and you also have the same concept in vision. So that's mainly the two types of screens that we're going to look at, is like a base level screen and then pop-up screens. And you can open pop-up screens by configuring your graphics here with a click event. So when I click on this, it tells the back end to pull this screen up here. Another powerful feature of Ignition with data coming from our tags is historical data collection, or the process historian module. So this allows us to store data in a database over time. There are also dedicated process historians on the market that we can connect to and pull data out of those. But Ignition gives you a fully featured historian out of the box with the historian module. This allows us to see data over time. In this case, we're looking at power usage effectiveness, water usage effectiveness, and carbon usage effectiveness. We'll see how those are set up here in red, blue, and green down at the bottom with the current value, the min and max, and average during this time span. We're currently set up in real-time mode, meaning this is going to update as the screen is displayed. Since we're looking at 8 hours of data, it's kind of hard to see that, but maybe that maps to a shift. So the operator would have this pulled up for their shift, and they could, at a glance, see how things were doing in the process. We'll go to the last 5 minutes, and we'll see if we just hover over this point to grab the data at 9:41 a.m. As this updates in real time, the 5-minute window is shifting to the left, and we're adding our current real-time values to the screen here on the right. We can also go to historical mode. So if we click the historical tab, and let's say we had an incident at 1:45 a.m. on March 10th. So let's pick our time that brackets that. So we'll go from 141 to 150. We can hit apply, and that will pull in from 141 to 150 here. And let's say we wanted to investigate why we have a high value here at 149, for example. I just picked 145 because that's near what was selected there. And let's say we wanted to pull in a new tag. We can go to the tag browser here, and this is all the historical data that we're collecting. So let's say, look at, section section 1 here, hottest hat temperature. So we can add that to our plot here up at the top. Then we'll see that gets added up here. Maybe that scaling's a little wonky, but we can add data to this, and then we could use that for troubleshooting. We'll also see down here in historical mode, where we have data, and we can use this to then further filter down our time period by clicking the edges of the window and clicking this box. And this will bring in just the data from this particular point in time. And then our min, max, and average down here update. And we're in X-trace mode, which means when we hover over the top here, that is giving us the values at a given point in time. And let's say this hottest hat temperature didn't help us at all. We can unselect that there to hide it, or we could delete that pin entirely and go back to our normal scaling. We can also go to pan and zoom mode, and if we want to pan to a different point in time, we can do that. Maybe let's make this a little bigger. So that will allow us to move our point in time forward so that we're looking at a different period if we want to look before or after what we pulled up there. And we can also add notes and things to the trend chart if we want to flag a particular point in time and a value for some reason. So this is a pretty powerful troubleshooting tool in Ignition. Then we also have alarms. So we'll go to the alarm screen. We currently have no active alarms. We'll see if one pops up here in a second, but this will give us any active alarms, and those will come in when we have any alarms that we've set up in Ignition pop up. So in this case, we're looking at section 3's air handling unit 2 temperature. It went above 24 degrees, so we want to alert an operator that happened, so they can go check what's going on there. Maybe there's something's going to break or burn up if it gets above 24. Once those come in, the operator can acknowledge them. So they show unacknowledged now. Then we'll click acknowledge. Now they show as acknowledged. That means the operator is aware of that. They're going to go do whatever troubleshooting they need to do to take care of that. And then when it goes back into normal condition at this point, it will fall off the list. And similar to the trend screen, we have real-time status. So this is all of our active alarms. We can also go into alarm history, and we could go, right now we're in real-time history of the last 8 hours. We could also go to historical. So let's say we wanted to go back to the same time period. If we can type let's say 1:50 a.m. So that'll take us to that period of time. It looks like we don't have any alarms that pop up during that time. Maybe we want to go to today's date back in time. That will take us here, and then we could scroll. And this is useful if, say, the plant tripped and went offline. We can come in and see what alarms came in and help troubleshoot what happened at that point. So that's the data center project. If we want to look at more of a process type view, we can go to the water treatment project overview screen. This gives us process equipment with pumps and various sensors and tanks. And based on the piping flow here, we can get a picture of what's going on. So we have raw water pumps that are coming in from wherever the raw water is coming in. Those go through here into these basins. So we can follow these kind of greenish yellow lines into the basins here, 1 through 7. Then it comes out of the basin in this light blue line into the filtering system. Then we also have some chemical pumps that pump chemicals into the filtering system just to treat the water. Then in this darker blue, it comes out of the filter into this clear well tank. That's probably a staging tank that we can then use to pump out with these high service pumps into our finished tanks. And then we could pump those out to wherever they're going from there. So this gives you a way to see a more process-based view. This would be very common in a manufacturing facility or water treatment or oil and gas, or many different use cases, and give you a process view. So this will allow the operators to see where things are in the process and understand the process flow. And if you're, say, on a plant tour and looking at a screen, you can get an idea of what they're talking about if you're looking at one of the operator overview screens like this. And on top of historical data collection and alarms, we'll also look at reporting and the examples here. So reports are a very common piece of the manufacturing puzzle. These would be things that maybe they're done on a batch basis or a time period basis, and we want to do things like collect various alarms, process data and things for that period of time or that batch. We can use the reporting engine to generate a report that pulls in whatever data we're telling it to do, and we can save these to a computer as a PDF file or email them out to various users as needed. And go back to here. We can also do things like a very common thing I've done in my career, EPA compliance reports. So this would be, say, for water testing or pollution prevention, sanitary sewer overflow. These are reports that the EPA requires to maintain compliance with their regulations for a given water facility. I've also seen that at a lot of mines that deal with really hazardous chemicals that they don't want to dump into the groundwater. So you can build reports based on existing forms. So this is an EPA form that they require you to fill out. And then we can automatically fill out all of this data in Ignition, either based on data the operators enter or from process data. And we can generate these and either email them or FTP them over to the EPA or a state department as needed to maintain compliance. You can also go outside of production floor things like inventory reports in a warehouse management system. This would give us a way to track what inventory we have in the warehouse and flag things that we need to, maybe we need to pull something off the shelf first because it's going to expire soon, or we just want to track how many widgets we have of a particular model number so that we're not overproducing based on our demand. So you can get basically anything you need in a report out of an Ignition system. And just one last piece of the puzzle. This is all in the client. So when we're looking at the architecture, they don't have that in here. We'll just look at the data center architecture. So we have, say, this front end client 1. That's what we're using to look at these screens. So that's, as we showed in the Understanding Automation video, when we look at, what is Ignition, this would be an Ignition client. Then we're talking to an Ignition server. We also have an Ignition designer. In this case, this comes from our Ignition 201 course. This is where you go through and create all the screens. In this case, we're creating a perspective overview for a coffee roasting facility. So here we're setting up all of our templates and tags and graphics and perspective navigation and all of that. And then we can load that up here in our client and we see what we're seeing there. And then if we were to make changes in the designer, then we can deploy that and that will update all of the clients. So when you talk about an Ignition server, that's the back end. That's a lot of the things that you'll do in the designer. Then the front end would be your clients where operators or users are actually looking at what's going on in the system. And I'd recommend going through the Ignition demo and seeing what's all available there. That gives you a really solid overview of what's possible in Ignition and with a manufacturing focus, but you can also build non-manufacturing focused systems very easily. If you have any questions or things that I should clarify and update this video, please let me know. Trying to make this as intuitive and user-friendly as possible for people getting started with Ignition for the first time. We'll dive more into some of the specifics of all of this in our Ignition 101 series, and then we'll go dive deep into the designer in Ignition 102, 103, and then 104 with our Launchpad projects. And then we go through the design challenge in Ignition 201 and some gold level certification stuff in 301 and 302. And then higher level things in the more advanced classes that you're certainly welcome to take part in. So please let me know if you have any feedback or any questions I should answer. Happy to have the conversation. Otherwise, thank you for watching and have a great day.